I've spent my career in B2B SaaS sales. I started out in the healthcare space, funny enough, and I was a founding AE, and then I grew into a VP sales role. That company failed. I always look at startups as, are you earning or learning? And this was very much this was very much a learning opportunity for me, and I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. It was a big part of my foundation. I believe that early success leads to later success. So you want to build a model that allows sales reps to be ideally hitting and maybe even overperforming their number. Um, and that leads itself into team culture. There's all the KPIs and numbers that you can look at, and they are very important. But you can also feel it when you get into a sales org and you talk to the sellers, the solutions engineers, the CSMs, everybody involved. You can feel that culture. And I believe in a winning mentality. I believe that success is a habit, and people get fired up about that, and they'll go the extra mile when they're passionate about it, and you have that energy. And that also filters out the type of people you want to continue hiring. And then the other thing I'll throw out there is you want to be authentic. um, People see right through that, and so be yourself, have some fun, know that what you're doing matters, and enjoy the ride, and enjoy the connection you can have with your prospects, and be real, be genuine.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. Are you interested in finding out how companies scale past the $10 million ARR ceiling? This episode is one of the number of episodes forming part of our new go-to-market guide, which reveals how industry leaders scaled past the stubborn $10 million ARR mark using strategies specifically designed for AEC. Discover the proven land and expand blueprint, pricing models at work, and real case studies from companies with significant exits. To get your copy, visit www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM.
All right, Scotland. So thanks for joining us. This is I think, our one, two, maybe fourth recording of this mini go-to-market series that we're doing on Bricks and Bytes. And your name has come up as one person that we need to speak to. And so here you are.
Makes
Welcome.
me feel important. Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
You
I
know,
don't
a
know.
very good...
I was going to say, I don't know who gave you my name. I wouldn't trust them.
What a key communication skill is to hyperinflate someone's ego before you start grilling them. So did it work?
So they can go through things easy.
Yeah. So onto the serious stuff. I think, Scotland, it'll be interesting to hear like your background and how you got to Planera. So we can start with that. Let's go.
Yeah, sure. I've spent my career in B2B SaaS sales. I started out in the healthcare space, funny enough, and I was a founding AE, and then I grew into a VP sales role. That company failed. I always look at startups as, are you earning or learning? And this was very much this was very much a learning opportunity for me, and I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. It was a big part of my foundation, and then I wanted to see what great looked like. And so I started to kind of filter for companies that I thought looked great, and thought a good starting point for that was looking where maybe smart money is going. So I looked at some VCs that I wanted to maybe follow along on their due diligence, and Sequoia happened to back PlanGrid. And I saw a role open that I wanted to pursue. I was in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon at the time, and so I took a role there, and PlanGrid was a pretty fun story we could get into later. And then I took a step out of construction tech. I took on a head of sales role at Scratchpad. And that was also a really fun journey with some great learnings and some great success. And then I just came back into construction tech, and I'm really happy to be here with Planera. And I'm on year 2 here at Planera. So it's a fun ride. I think I've been here about a year and 8 months, something along those lines.
Why did you come back?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, there's a few things. Look, to be candid with you, I wasn't specifically looking to get into construction tech. I was really looking to be a part of a great team. That's what I wanted at the time. And I got introduced to Nitin, the CEO at Planera, by Bill Smith, and he was the former president of PlanGrid. And when I met Nitin, I knew he was somebody that I wanted to work with. That was the first and most important check of the box for me. It just happened to be in construction tech, which was really has turned out to be a perfect scenario. And I've been reinvigorated. It's such a fun market. The people are great. The things they're doing are great. It's all around you. I'm sure, people sometimes it might come off as corny, but it's education, it's healthcare, it's infrastructure, it's all these incredible things that people are building, and it's right in front of you. So it's a very tangible, fun thing to be a part of.
Wonderful. Okay, go on, man.
How about we start this go-to-market chat? If we ask you to sell us Planera, how would you sell us?
Sorry, what is it?
How about if we started this go-to-market chat? If we ask you to sell us Planera,
To sell Planera?
That's
yeah.
a hot question.
What is Planera about?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to tell you guys a little bit about it. I mean, I think it'll help if I just share a little bit about the current state. Today, people use a scheduling tool called P6. It's a tool built by Oracle. It's been around for decades. It's an on-prem tool. It's not a modern cloud-based tool. They did try to build Oracle Primavera Cloud, but the reality is the market hasn't moved to it. Everybody is still on the legacy system, rolling their own servers. And I think the question really to ask is, if you've ever been a part of anything, that one of the key ingredients to planning is collaboration. And the future of planning and scheduling is collaborative. And very much, if you guys are familiar with, there's a lot of tools, but maybe something like Figma. They democratized design. People used to only certain people who knew how to use Adobe and do all these little design things could leverage it and give feedback. But now with a tool like Figma, which is, a whiteboard, collaborative, easy to use tool, everybody can be involved in that process. And that's very much how planning and scheduling works. When you have more people involved, you drive better outcomes. When the superintendent can look at the plan, understand it, give input, or the trade partner or the client, you're going to get better outcomes. And I think that's what's special about Planera is it allows everybody to be a stakeholder and be involved in the plan, come to the best plan, and then communicate that plan and ensure it's being executed against.
Martin, would you buy it?
I'm just signing the card details.
I sent the DocuSign over to you.
Yeah.
Damn, you're on fire. Okay, all right. So let's dive in. This is very broad and open, but we've done this on purpose. So, how would you define success in construction tech go-to-market?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Obviously, you need to be hitting certain metrics, and I think in today's environment, it's a little bit more about efficient growth. It's not like growth at all costs. So you want to, keep your burn reasonable. You want to look at your what we call sales capacity plan and make sure your team is performing at a high level, that they're hitting quota. I believe that early success leads to later success. So you want to build a model that allows sales reps to be ideally hitting and maybe even overperforming their number. And that leads itself into team culture. There's all the KPIs and numbers that you can look at, and they are very important. But you can also feel it when you get into a sales org and you talk to the sellers, the solutions engineers, the CSMs, everybody involved. You can feel that culture. And I believe in a winning mentality. I believe that success is a habit. And people get fired up about that, and they'll go the extra mile when they're passionate about it, and you have that energy. And that also filters out, the type of people you want to continue hiring. And I think that's a really important ingredient to me is maybe a little bit softer, but the culture and the success.
And does the success look the same in different industries when it comes to B2B SaaS? Or construction is different, special, perhaps, or no?
I don't think so. I think you could look at it. You want people to be successful. You want certain KPIs and metrics that you're going to look at. I'd say one thing for us in particular, and I think for a lot of construction tech companies, that you want to see is a really high like net dollar retention. For example, if you wanted to maybe stack up your customers and look at them as a cohort each quarter and see quarter over quarter the growth of each cohort, just to show like, are we landing new logos first and foremost, and then are we then expanding those accounts? Because a lot of construction companies buy your product at a project level, and when they buy it at a project level, that project will end and that will be churn. And so are you able to move from a project to more projects, or even better, to an enterprise, a region, a business unit? And you'll see that in that expansion growth within your account base.
Very insightful. Is the correct term, as I think I learned last week or the week before, land and expand?
Yeah. We
it's
use
working.
There you go.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
What Scotland just explained.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I was saying, construction companies, the way their P&L works and their budgets and everything, every project has its own financial budget. And so it allows you to go land a deal with a large ENR company, and you land that on one initial project, maybe several. And if you're successful and you have champions, they're referenceable, you've got all the right things happening, they're going to tell others about it. You're going to be able to go above the line and communicate with project executives or vice presidents or, C-level folks, and you have a proof point. That land that you did, it becomes your proof point that you can then take and work towards larger expansion, because if that project is experiencing value, then their whole enterprise could experience that value. And so you can get your initial land, and then you can go expand across the rest of the company.
Thank you.
Very good. Could we jump into some pricing? As I suppose it maybe is timely because we're on the subject of projects, etc. So maybe we could talk about what pricing models work best, perhaps in an earlier stage of a company versus a later stage. And maybe you could cover also, Scotland, about like project-based pricing versus value-based versus per seat, and how you guys tackle it. Wow, big question.
Yeah.
And what was the journey as well?
Yeah. I'm happy to share a little bit about that. So when I first got into construction tech, that was at PlanGrid, and PlanGrid was a user-based model, and that worked well for what they had to offer. It was a very much a product-led growth tool. There was a freemium offer, and it was pretty cool. I mean, it was right after the iPad had come out, and superintendents would be walking the job site with an iPad, and other foremen from other trade partners or people from that GC, whoever it was, would see that iPad. What are you doing with that? And then they'd quickly show them, zoom in, zoom out, move around, take a picture. And all of a sudden they said, well, I want to try that out. And they could download an app and get started. And then it kicked off that freemium free trial, 21-day offer is what we had. And then we would convert a lot of those. We'd convert them via self-serve credit card. And that was also kind of a nice thing as a seller to have visibility into a lot of self-serve monthly paying individual users. You could then go to the IT or the C-level person or whomever it might be and say, hey, you guys have 27 users on this project and they're getting this benefit and value. And now you're kicking off that corporate level discussion. And so I think for PlanGrid, that user-based pricing made a lot of sense. And of course, as we got to the enterprise, we would adjust pricing a bit, but it was still user-based. Procore came on the scene hot and heavy with volume-based pricing, construction volume-based pricing. We battled against that a lot and had our own ways of communicating why maybe that didn't make sense or why user-based pricing was better. But it sure feels like they transformed the space to become more comfortable with the volume-based pricing. After all, they can work it into their rates. As a GC, we can estimate certain things into our labor rates and other ways to package it up and justify paying for that tool. And it's fairly scalable when you look at your construction volume and base the pricing. So I think there's different ways to price. A lot of it depends on the value you provide, the perceived value from the customer, and we're more along the lines of similar to a Procore model. And one of the key reasons for us is because when you start using Planera, you get more people involved. And we had a situation where we rolled out to a large clean energy project, and initially the general contractor team was maybe 5 folks, and then they started incorporating their subcontractors, and you've got 30 people, 40 people. And so we have an unlimited user model, and that's really worked out well for us. So when I came in, I went right to this model, and so there was a little bit of a journey and a lot of debate, and at the initial early days it was a hypothesis, but it worked out. And so fortunately for us, we didn't have to continue to go back to the drawing board over and over. It did just happen to work out for us.
Customers love it or not?
Yeah, it's we haven't had much pushback at all. There's been 2 customers who say, hey, we will not sign a volume based, or we just won't even do a deal that way. We've had 2 people say that. And otherwise, people see the value. I think that's the most important thing, is if you can really communicate the value and the why behind your pricing, because whether it's user or it's this or it's that, like, it's all about the benefit and the value. And if your value is 10x or 100x your price, then it shouldn't matter too much how you price it.
Scotland, how about early days in a company, like how you figure out your pricing and the model? Is it a process of trial and error, or is there more science that you could apply?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, for us in the early days, when I came in, I had a hypothesis, and that's all it was. And then the cool thing about startups is you go try stuff and you see what happens. And you want to make sure you have enough data to make a good informed decision. So yeah, for us, it was very much just a testing process, a hypothesis, scientific method, give it a shot, and make sure you're learning and iterating based on the feedback you're getting, and also based on the value you're delivering for your customers.
How does what are your thoughts on sales cycle in construction tech?
Yeah, sales cycle. I've learned a lot about it. I mean, we could go anywhere with it. I think it really depends on what's your ideal customer profile. Are you selling to SMB, just really small mom and pop shops? And there's a lot of successful companies doing that. Or are you selling to top ENR companies? So personally, we sell to mostly mid-market to enterprise customers, general contractors and subcontractors. So for us, the sales cycle is important. For some people, it's shorter. For some people, it's longer. It needs to make sense in terms of your deal size as well. Quotas, all that has to be aligned in order for the capacity plan and the revenue engine to make sense.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Is there a way for in my head it probably taken longer at the top end of the market versus the bottom. Is there a way to accelerate the speed at the top end?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, first and foremost, you have to have a champion, right? And so I think if you have a champion and you have, I should even back up, more importantly, is does the customer have pain? And is this a problem worth solving? Because if you can align to your prospect's biggest business goals or biggest business pain, those problems and challenges also have the biggest budget. They have the biggest titles involved. And so again, if you align yourself to the most strategic initiatives, you're gonna be able to accelerate your timelines because it's a problem worth solving and worth solving fast.
Mm-hmm. What about so assuming there's a long approval process, sales cycle, how to maintain like a steady momentum with the customer?
Yeah. So I'll say a couple of things. I mentioned this to you guys earlier. When we were acquired at PlanGrid by Autodesk for $1 billion, we then we were all startup people, and we went through formal training at Force Management. And I think it's a great framework. There's lots of frameworks. Pick whichever one works best for you. I've stuck with that one. And what you have in there is internally a qualification tool called MEDPIC. It's an acronym. It's a very well-known acronym. And so you want to make sure you're looking at your deals through the lens of MEDPIC. And of MEDPIC, the most important 3 letters to me are ICE, ICE. So identified pain, champion, and economic buyer. So those are the things that I really want to look at in any of our deals.
What does it mean? What do you mean?
Yeah. So
obviously the first one,
identified pain, like is this a pain point for the customer that's large, it's a priority, and it's impacting their business, and others are aware of it. And then your champion, this is somebody who has influence, they have authority, they have access to budget, and they have a personal win attached to what you have to offer. Like the transformation you're going to provide is maybe it's going to give them a promotion. Like they're proud of what this is going to bring to the table. And then the economic buyer is the person who is going to secure those funds and potentially sign off on that paperwork. And so you have to know these things, and you have to test them and pressure test them consistently. That's a good internal qualification strategy that I would recommend people leverage. And that'll give you a really good sense just to kick things off of your deal. And then to go back to what you asked, like how can we compress this? How can we accelerate the timelines? So now once you've done your qualification of your deal internally, you also need to have a mutual action plan. Like if you don't have a plan with your customer, what are we doing, right? And so it's not just what you're doing, but it's also what the customer is doing. And it should literally list out the steps through the process to bring this deal to closure. And you can easily like work backwards, and you want to be populating those things that are critical to your deal to get it done.
Is it usually one person is selling to one company or customer, or this should be more involved process, but not only?
Yeah. So again, I'm speaking more from like a strategic deal perspective, right? So I'm more in the motion, let's say, of like 90-day sales cycles and beyond with the complexity that I'm talking about. These aren't like small transactional deals, quick hit, 1 day, 1 month deals. We do some of those for sure, but like the type of stuff I'm communicating is more around those strategic 90-day plus sales cycles. And so
6 figures and more, or
it doesn't have to be. I mean, sometimes you'll work a top down level initiative from one of the top ENR companies, one of the top GCs or subcontractors, and they're not ready to invest in your early stage product, throw down $1 million or $200,000. It's moving strategically through the organization. You want your deal size to be big, but maybe it's only 20K, right? Because they want to make an initial investment, but they want to validate this tool. And so you've got a lot going on. You're working through strategically top down, and you're landing a deal that may not be six figures. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And so to go back to your question, one of the really important parts of a deal is to be multi-threaded, and you want to be working, depending on the product you have, probably at the project level with superintendents, project managers, project executive, folks like that. You also want to be working with, maybe they have an innovation team, a director of technology, maybe they have an operational leader, right? So you want to be touching all these points, and you want to make sure that you understand what's in it for them and how your tool can drive value for them. And sometimes you need to align in different ways to those folks. Like as a seller, I might align to the project level. I probably will. And then when we get up to maybe a project executive or a director, maybe I want to bring my manager in. And then when we get up to a C level, maybe I want to bring my CEO in. And you start to get that alignment across their company, understand what their goals are and how your product can help them achieve those goals from those different perspectives. Multi-threading is a really important thing to do.
You know, Owen, when I listen to him speaking, my first impression is it's like a surgical understanding of a process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
process driven. So this mutual action plan, is this an internal or external tool? Is it something that, well, maybe the clue's in the name, right? But are you kind of like this sharing this with the customer and say, okay, over the next 18 months, like month one, I don't know what the action might be, but is it like, I'm going to send you an email, and month two, I'm going to call you, etc. Maybe you could just expand on that.
Yeah. So I would look at it as the plan to get the transaction done. And there is much more to it than that, but let's just sit within the 90 to 120 day sales cycle. These are the key things that we're going to need to do on both sides to get to signature. Of course, the relationship continues on after that, and there's the deployment, and that's a whole nother plan. And if you're working strategically, your customers are going to want to know what the deployment plan is, and you should probably be getting your customer success people involved there. But the mutual action plan, if we look at it from start of the conversations to the signed transaction. And so there's going to be things like the paper process. They're going to want to go through perhaps a master subscription agreement, master service agreement. They might want to make sure your cybersecurity is on point. You know, we're a SOC 2 type 2 certified company. There a lot of construction companies have matured and what their expectations are from a security perspective. So that's a big step. There's going to be what we like to call a business value assessment. And that's really just getting alignment on the current state of the customer and the outcomes that we can drive. That's a document we like to build with them together. So that's part of the step. There's going to be an evaluation period by maybe one type of persona. Then there's going to be an evaluation from maybe a different type of persona. And so everybody's unique, but you want to build in the key milestones that you know are going to help you get your deal across the line. And it is mutual. So there's things that they need to do that your customer needs to do, and those are documented. And that's how you can hold people accountable. And you show up, you get on your, maybe you have a weekly sync scheduled with the team. You show up and you pop open the mutual action plan. Hey, what's changed since last time? You go through Yep, go ahead.
I'm very curious about the number of deals that one person can do, having in mind like a longer sales cycle, let's say 90 days and plus. Have you got any thoughts on that, or it's what do you say?
I don't have a strong opinion on it. And reality is, not every deal is going to be the same. You know, you as a seller, we we have our sellers placed regionally. And so if you're in the West Coast or you're in the Midwest or the Southeast, in the early days, you want to be able to run a fair amount of strategic deals. But you're also going to be running some of the more maybe transactional deals, because those deals will help you keep monthly flow, more, 20, 30-day sales cycles, that are great customers to have, but require a little bit less of a strategic, multi-threaded, all all the extra components of the deals that I'm describing. So you'll have sales reps that'll have a chunk of more transactional stuff, and then they'll have a smaller amount of more strategic stuff. So it's a blend.
Quick break to let you know, if you're getting value from this conversation, we've compiled insights like these into our comprehensive construction tech go-to-market guide. Inside, you'll find the exact frameworks top AEC tech companies use to break past the $10 million ARR mark, detailed case studies from successful exits, and actionable playbooks for pricing, sales team structure, and enterprise expansion. Head to www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM and transform how you approach growth in construction tech. Now back to our conversation.
Okay. So I'd be interested, Scotland, to hear what tools are currently in your toolbox when it comes to sales, because we're in this interesting time where there's a lot of like AI stuff coming out specifically aimed at go-to-market. Are you guys adopting any of that, or do you have your like trusted toolbox that has brought you success in the past, which you're sticking by?
Yeah, I think obviously everybody needs to have a CRM tool. So, most people are going to go with Salesforce. Certainly some people will go with maybe something like HubSpot. There's some other alternatives. I've always been a Salesforce person, so I don't have any intention to move away from that in my career anytime soon. Yeah, you're going to need some of the basics like a proposal contract tool. In the early days, that's something as simple as DocuSign. As you get more mature, you might want a tool that allows you to manage legal markups and things of that nature. But early stage, you don't need to worry about that. You do need contact database, whether you want to, go for a Zoom Info or some of the other alternatives. We use Apollo right now. And then you need some engagement sequencing technology. So for us, Apollo also offers that, which is convenient. But you've got Outreach, you've got Gong, which is now doing pretty much everything as well. And then I do think call recording is really important. Apollo does that for us, but Gong is kind of the industry standard that's been around for a long time. But there's a lot of options on the call recording side. I'd say that's one of the things I'm more intrigued by right now. There's so much information that we gather over these audio and video recordings. And with AI popping up and becoming very real and valuable, we can learn a lot from these transcripts. And, that applies to marketing, product, sales, onboarding, enablement. And I'm pretty interested. I'm hoping to dive in soon on how we could start leveraging our audio and video recordings with AI.
I wanted to ask about at what point startup founding teams should start looking at head of sales, someone who will quote unquote professionally manage sales?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that you want to have some level of product market fit. It's not going to help you to bring a seller in if you don't have product market fit. It's going to be a struggle. You're going to outsource a lot of the time in front of the customers, and they're going to be consuming and digesting a lot of information that you're going to need to help make decisions on your product. And I've been there. I've been at that early stage when we didn't have product market fit. It's brutal. It's fun. You learn a lot, but man, it's really tough. I think, in my opinion, as a founder, if you can really find your product market fit and you know that your customers are receiving value, you're certain that it's resonating with them, even if you don't have revenue yet. Maybe you haven't closed any transactions yet. I know there's some people that would think that's bad advice and that the founders should go out and close deals on their own. I think that's fine. But I've entered environments where the founders haven't closed any deals and have been very successful in that environment.
That's interesting, yeah. Because we're like, I have to say, that's like a different take on probably most people we speak to, actually. And they all say that founders should be doing the sales. But if you can back it up with the success, like you say, then does it really matter?
I mean, what if you have an incredible product CEO and they know they've done such a great job of understanding customers and their needs, and they've built something really transformational, and they have some, let's say, early call it design partners or early stage partners that they're not paying the company yet. They're not paying, but they're very happy, and you know they'd be willing to pay. They're using it.
Yeah.
Like they're running part of their business on the tool. They're basically customers. You could pretty much call that customers, but maybe the CEO isn't, they're not the type to go out and build up a business case and ask for the business.
My next one is how to attract the best salespeople, and that includes remuneration. Like, obviously not numbers, but like, what's the structure of remuneration should be like to attract the best sellers?
I think just generally incentives as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty straightforward. I mean, you guys tell me if you're thinking of something else, but like every company I've been at, we run 50-50 comp plans. So half of my on-target earning is my base salary. Half of my on-target earning is my variable. And that's based on me closing business. And when you have a 50-50 comp plan, you're heavily incentivized to go out and close business. And, you want to make sure as a leadership team, you're assigning realistic quotas, especially in the early days. Like, do you want to be the traditional, hey, 10% of our, or maybe it's more. So it used to be 80% or hitting 80%. That was like the magical number. But I was looking the other day and it's like 30% of teams are hitting their number. 30 to 40% are hitting their number. And again, if you want to early stage, build that momentum, build that excitement, set a target that, yes, it's hard to achieve, but it can be achieved. And don't overhire. Be smart about how you hire and make sure you're validating and seeing that success from your team before you start layering in more people, carving out territories. You're going to want people to be happy and be able to reach and exceed their quota. Now, there's some other things, of course, as an early stage company. I would expect equity. I'm taking a risk. I'm leaving the comfort of this big company that gives me benefits. Maybe they give me publicly traded stock of a company that's real value. I'm going to want some equity in this early stage startup I'm risking my career on and I'm building. And so I think that's a very real part of it. And then you could look at some other things. Like you could set up a spiff, for example, that aligns with a company initiative. And maybe that's built around some of the input metrics that matter. Like, you know what? We need pipeline if we're going to reach the right amount of closed deals. So let's set up a spiff. Whoever generates the most pipeline this quarter gets some kind of monetary reward. So those are some maybe smaller motivational things that you could utilize as well.
Nice.
Does cold outreach work in construction tech sales? And how to do it? Does cold outreach work in construction tech sales? And if yes, then how to do it properly?
Yeah, what strategies?
Yeah, I think for sure it works. I mean,
do you send a photo as a first message, or how do you do it?
Yeah, you just FaceTime people.
Oh, that's no one's ever said that either. So that must be the hack. especially late on the weekends.
Yeah, try Right. See what happens.
See what happens.
But
Uh,
yeah, seriously though, I do think that cold outreach is very much alive. I think it's very much alive in the construction business. Um, people operate on their cell phones in construction, and look, we shouldn't be just blowing them up, calling them. They're busy. They're trying to coordinate with trade partners and internal and external stakeholders. But if you have something valuable to provide and you've gathered their information in an appropriate way, like you should definitely feel comfortable to reach out to people. Um, I'd say, very much like most industries, email is a really hard way to break through. It's still worth it, but very difficult to break through. Events are all over the place. Like if you are a local sales rep in a local region, you should be out in the field at events, annual conferences, regional conferences, whatever it is you sell. I guarantee they have local conferences about the things that you have to provide that you could start to be a part of and build a community. My early days being an individual contributor at PlanGrid, I still have some incredible friends when I was out in the field meeting builders, whether I sold them something or not. Those are the people that when I go back to Portland, I'm going to grab a beer with. That I built real relationships with people, and I think that's an important part. Construction is very much a face-to-face business.
How much of it relies on actually physically going to a site and just showing up cold? Does it work?
I think it depends a bit on the product you have to provide. Like if you're more of a BIM VDC type of person, you might want to be going into an office versus actually just showing up to a job site. It's changed a little bit, but when I was at PlanGrid, I would spend a lot of time in the field and visiting job sites. And I actually had an awesome BDR on my team that was local with me, and we would map out a set of projects that we wanted to drop by. And even as I was driving, I'd call him up and say, "Hey, there's this one here. This is, you can see the crane, you can see the GC. It's this GC." So as I'm going and showing up to these other job sites, he would call up the GC and say, "Hey, I was hoping to reach the PM for this project." Let him know I was in the area meeting with competitor A, competitor B, project 1 or 2, subcontractor 3 or 4. And when you have that relevance, it can bring it can pique the interest of folks. And if you're bringing donuts, if you're bringing lunch, maybe you're a little more mature of a company, you want to show up with a taco truck. There's a lot of things that you can do. And people appreciate that. They don't mind that. There's people dropping by their job sites all day, suppliers bringing tools, equipment, materials. So if you have a great product to share, people don't mind you dropping by. You just have to be aware, sometimes you need to give people space and recognize that now's not the time.
Fair enough.
What about curated introductions? Do they have 100% success rate?
What do you mean curated?
Yes.
So I, for example, introduce you to Owen because I know Owen is a potential buyer of your.
Yeah. So I think it very much depends on who's providing the introduction, right? Is this somebody who's credible that that doesn't just give their name out to everybody and getting some kind of incentive for it? Yeah. Versus I've got an awesome customer that the general superintendent, it's completely transformed how they run their projects, and it's giving them time back on the weekends. And I ask, "Hey, do you have any buddies that you think could benefit from this?" And hey, you know what? I used to work at this company and that company. I'll tell these guys about it and introduce you. That's going to go much longer than, hey, I've been a seller in the industry for 20 years and I've got a list of names to introduce you to.
What we were talking before, and I wanted to ask it, but it's just come back to me now. We were talking about teams and hiring and incentives. What do you think makes a great should we call them salesperson or go-to-market specialist within construction tech?
So you're saying what profile might work best for early sales hires?
No, I mean just generally speaking. Oh well, yeah. Why don't we break it down and say like, yeah, is there like an attribute of people that you look for in the early days, versus like someone when you're in the scaling?
Yeah. So I was listening recently. Somebody who I've just followed along for my SaaS career is Jason Lemkin, and
Saster.
yeah, and he talks about the early stage AEs. They need to be pirates and romantics, because between $1 million and $5 million in ARR as a early stage tech B2B SaaS company, everything is broken and it's chaotic. The product has bugs. You're changing your positioning monthly. You don't even have marketing. Maybe there's no sales decks, or if there are, they're changing, and the sales enablement is non-existent, right? And most sales folks and many people can't thrive in that environment because maybe they're not entrepreneurial. They don't have that owner mentality, which is so important. And maybe it's self-determination, maybe it's grit to be able to build something. And so that's a really important part of when you're hiring in the early days. They've got to have those things, and those people are going to be the ones that jump into an early stage company. They get more equity and they build something really special, uh, and they're rewarded for that.
Uh-huh. Before we started recording, you mentioned that you got off the call with potential customer. Hopefully, it will go well, and you sent him a Loom video as one of the initial interactions. I think is video the way to sell, or to have this like initial contact and explanation of the product, and is it the best way? And why did you do it actually?
Yeah. So interesting scenario. We had been working with somebody who we felt like was, maybe a champion, somebody who was going to bring us to the table and help sell on our behalf, right? Because you're not always the one that gets to present to the C level. And we then found out, hey, you know what? They're going to go a different direction. And I, at this point, had so much conviction on the business case we had built. And I truly felt that they were going to be making a big mistake that was going to not lead to the outcomes they were trying to drive. And I sent out a pretty passionate email. I was very honest, really like respectful, but really honest about how I felt that we could impact them and why they should take a look. I included a link to a case study of a similar customer, and I recorded a 90-second Loom video clip of why I felt that way, and briefly highlighted our product and just showed him that big difference. And he was willing to hop on the call 2 days later, and he's the COO of the company. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, we went very well. We went for 2 hours. That's why I was late. but but yeah,
Very good.
hopefully, going in the right direction. So excited to see where it goes. But I do think video is a great way to communicate with people.
Uh-huh. Short, like
Actually,
90 seconds, or perhaps longer at some cases.
Yeah, longer in some cases, but these days, people are scrolling through Instagram or X or whatever, and they expect bite-sized chunks. And so I try as much as possible to break them down into bite-sized chunks that are very relevant and get to the point quickly.
Uh-huh.
very good. What are there any like partner ecosystems, or just maybe keep it more general, like how you view partnerships? And are you at Planera currently doing that, or have you done that in the past?
Yeah, and brand awareness maybe also broadly on to that.
Yeah, I think there's some opportunity to partner. Usually one company is getting more out of it than the other. Um, but I do think partnerships are a good thing. I think some people get too eager and excited to do a partnership. It all sounds great at first, but you want it to have validity. You don't want to just do it to do it. And if a prospect says, "Hey, I see you have this partnership. What's it about?" and there's no meat on the bone, that's not really going to drive more credibility and trust in your business. So if you're going to do a partnership, it should be legitimate. If it's with another product, it should offer value, and there's probably some kind of real integration or real value of this partnership. So that's my take. We're not eager to get into a bunch of partnerships at Planera. Today we have an integration with Procore and an integration with Autodesk. And there's certainly some things we're pretty excited about and currently having some early conversations around complementary partners that we can work with in the ecosystem.
I'm curious, tell what you say, but if you can't say much, then don't tell. But what would it take at Planera stage to have partnership with someone?
Yeah, I mean, I think there would need to be some kind of real value add. Like, again, like the last
Is
thing
it distribution, like numbers of subscribers, viewers, or I'll add somewhere else? Value add is somewhere else.
Well, I guess when I'm thinking of partners, I'm thinking of more product partners, right? And so, yes, certainly, like we would love to partner with companies that have more reach than us, that can get us in front of more people that maybe don't have awareness of what we're doing yet. That's ideal. But we wouldn't want to do that unless there's real value, because again, if they hear about Planera through the, let's just say, Procore partner ecosystem, and then they go to inspect it and there's no value there, it's a waste, and it's not a good look for us.
You don't want to be hearing about your product on
from
controversial news channel. Might be good for distribution, but I'm not sure it has the intended effect.
That's right.
Or maybe you do.
Yeah, what do they say? Like, any news is good news. Is that what they say?
Yeah, no PR is
bad. PR is good PR. Yeah, something like that.
That's not our philosophy, but yeah, for some people.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about resources to learn how to sell that resonate with you for more junior sales guys and girls in construction.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first off, you can ask people. There's some great mentors out there. A lot of people like to give back, and whether it's in your company or it's somebody else, you can always ask. There's nothing wrong with asking. So that's one option, and I think everybody should have mentors. I have always had people, whether they knew it or not, that were mentors to me. And when I first joined PlanGrid, I found the number one seller, and I just stuck to his hip. Hey, what are you doing for your demos? And how do you interact with your customers? And I rolled around with him, and that helped me quickly accelerate. The other thing I would say is there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of content and information, and I'm certain many of them are really great. I tend to follow, as I've mentioned here already, maybe one or two times, Force Management. They have a podcast called Revenue Builders. We went through a whole certification program with them when I was at Autodesk. That's very expensive. It's from more mature companies. My favorite sales book is called The Qualified Sales Leader. It's written by John McMahon, who is kind of the godfather of MedPick and the Force Management team. They all worked under him. He's probably the most successful CRO of all time. And the book is in a really easy to read and follow story format. It's not just like facts and data. It's more in a story, which makes it easy to follow along, but also easy to apply. So that's my go-to.
Okay.
Yeah. How about, is there anything specific in construction tech?
I don't know.
Apart from podcasts like Bricks and Bytes, for example.
Apart from this mini-series, maybe.
Have you guys heard of Bricks and Bytes? It's incredible construction tech go-to-market podcast.
Yeah. Have you been on it?
That means we are legit.
I'm just going to screenshot that a little bit and put that somewhere.
Maybe common go-to-market mistakes you see that tech startups make.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I guess I'll
Maybe
start with,
also, Scotland, I'll get not to lead you, but how hard you should be prospecting. What should your calendar look like?
okay. So I'll take both of those separately.
Yeah.
Common mistakes. I know people will have all kinds of answers. A lot of them people have already heard. So I'm not going to double down on those ones. I'm going to go with one that I think I've experienced and others have, but it's not talked about as much, which is um, there's there's really let's just say no such thing as a good culture and a bad culture. They're just different. And I think for any company, it doesn't matter small or big, but especially early stage, as you're building the foundation, right? I mean, this is gonna be the future. The people we bring in now are going to help um, improve our probability of success or failure. And you know, culture is an important part of it. It's not everything, but I think it's important to come up with your core values and your principles and capture those. And oftentimes it's like this corny thing that nobody really lives by or believes in. But if you really do buy into those, and when you're interviewing people, one of the tricks that I learned, I did a podcast for a little while and I interviewed a guy, Sterling Snow. He was the CRO of Divvy that got acquired for 2 billion by Bill.com. And one of the things they did at Divvy was they would describe Divvy as a person to the candidates they're interviewing. Hey, would you want to hang out with this person? This is what this person is like. And it makes it really tangible for the candidates to understand what the expectations are and who they're going to be with and what the company is like. And the other thing we do in addition to that is we also like to share our core values with our candidates through the interview process. It's not something that they should like find out later. They should know what we're about ahead of time. And so we like to share that uh, in advance so they can get to know what we're about. So there's many other important things and common mistakes, but everybody's going to talk about them. So I'm not going to add any others.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's a very different one, very unique actually. How hard should you be prospecting? What should your calendar blocks look like on a good week?
Yeah, I think prospecting is incredibly important, especially in the early days. You're not going to have a bunch of qualified inbound. You're not going to have a completely ramped up outbound BDR team. So every rep should take it upon themselves to uh, to bake their own cake. Like anything that's going to come in inbound or be handed to them, that's like icing. So if my quota is $1 million and I need 3x or 5x of that pipeline, and you should know that. You should know what your win rates are. You should know how much pipeline you need. So if you need 3 million or $4 million of pipeline, how are you going to get there? You have to work backwards from that number and break it down. How much pipeline are you going to need to generate per month? How many calls is it going to take you? That might be a little too much minutia if you're diving into calls and et cetera. But I like to look at it more of um, if you're putting in the time and doing the right work, the rest is going to take care of itself. And so you should have dedicated time blocks to meet those needs. And you should just be aware of if you're trending to reach your pipeline goals or not.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the hard stats won't necessarily come till later either. Whilst you've got a bit of data to base it on, right?
Yeah. But again, even if you don't have all the data, which you will not have in the early days, you do have to make sure you're focused on the right priorities. You have to ruthlessly say no to the things that aren't going to move the needle. And prospecting is one of the most important, if not the most important thing you should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One last one each, Martin.
Well, my last one was going to be what else is important in go to market and construction tech we haven't spoken about.
Probably quite a lot of things.
You said what was the question?
What else is important in construction tech go to market that we haven't spoken about?
I'll throw one out. I mean, I think that it's really important for the customer facing roles to understand construction to a certain degree, to have a bit of a story. if your sellers aren't coming from construction tech, which you can't always do, you need your pre-sales and post-sales to be from the industry. Industry people, they want that expertise and they need it. They're building complex things, and if you're going to go deploy something and onboard a team and you don't know anything about what they do and the actual work they're doing, it's not going to go well. And so we've had customers that have come to us and said, hey, we talked to XYZ competitor and they didn't even understand construction. Like that stuff matters to them. And then the other thing I'll throw out there is you want to be authentic. People see right through that. And so be yourself, have some fun, know that what you're doing matters, and enjoy the ride and enjoy the connection you can have with your prospects, and be real, be genuine.
Cool. Scotland, has there been one thing you've done, one practice or technique, strategy, tool that you've implemented that had a really big inflection or impact on your results as a go-to-market?
Apart from FaceTiming.
Yeah. Besides FaceTime. Oh man. That's a good question. Man. So I'll say the things that matter the most are going to be what always mattered, which is putting in the work, making your calls, showing up in person. It's all the fundamentals. I truly believe, like, if you're doing the fundamentals, it's going to lead to success. And that's more on like an individual contributor level. And then I think on the leadership side, ensuring that what you're focused on is aligned with the business goals. Like, you should have really crisp understanding of the business goals, and that should trickle down what your priorities are on go-to-market or on product or on marketing. It should all be aligned and consistently checked quarterly, for example, that the things you're driving, the goals and the incentives you're building are all built around the company objectives.
Brilliant.
Very good. Okay, Scotland, thank you for joining us. We usually let people do any kind of like plug or initiative or something that you're currently running. If not, then goodbye, I guess.
And where people can find out more about you and Planera.
Yeah, for sure. So Planera is a rapidly growing company. We had a seed round. That is when I joined, shortly after the seed round. And we've had some incredible success. We raised a Series A with a tier 1 venture capital B2B SaaS company called Sierra, a venture capitalist. And then we also brought in 2 great, more construction focused VCs to be a part of that Series A. So we brought Brick and Mortar and Prudence, which are fantastic. And we're hiring across most roles, whether it's product, marketing, sales, solutions engineers, customer success, and we'll be continuing to hire. So if you're interested in driving transformation and replacing a incumbent in Oracle, we are growing and we're looking for great talent.
Beautiful. Thank you.